Hello old-timers and newcomers, I am Cold Scratches, and thank you for joining me to take a look at what I found. And I did find this thing! In that I have tried ordering it for 5 years, and every single time I've had my money refunded because it was never in stock. In the cathedral of found footage, this movie stands shoulder to shoulder with titans like the Blair Witch Project, Cannibal Holocaust, Paranormal Activity, Guinea Pig, and Alien Autopsy. It's a no-budget debut film about a family attacked by aliens, written, directed, filmed, and produced by one man no one had ever heard of at the time, Dean Aliotto. Not long after he secured distribution rights, the master tape was destroyed in a warehouse fire. But that's not to say no one ever saw it. If you knew the right video store clerk back in the early 90s, you could have gotten your hands on a bootlegged copy of the film, and from there, the movie took on a life of its own. Aliotto had no idea what happened until he got a call in 1992 informing him his movie had just been shown at the International UFO Congress with several experts, including a former military man, confirming the footage was real. And how that happened, that is more fascinating than the movie itself. Back in 1989, before the movie was officially distributed, a couple of screeners had been sent out to video stores under the name UFO Abduction to see what people thought of it. Someone had taken one of the copies, erased the credits from the film, and shared it with a number of UFO conspiracists. They, in turn, had made copies of their own, and from there the movie lived on as a well-guarded secret within the UFO community, until Aliotto received that phone call asking if he knew who found the footage. To his credit, he never purposefully scammed anyone. As soon as the question was asked, he clarified nobody found the footage, they made the footage. But he did want to find the genius who decided to remove the credits back in '89 and shake their hand, because, tip of the hat, he wished he'd thought of that. But that's enough flapping of gums. Let's watch the movie and see what the Walkman generation thought was a genuine alien encounter. Does anyone else miss Walkman, or am I just old? Funnily enough, the family on screen isn't called McPherson, and that's because Aliotto would later remake the movie where the family was called McPherson. But with this being the real footage the remake was based on, it inaccurately became known as the MCPHERSON tape. Anyway, the Van Hees family is celebrating little Michelle Van Hees's 5th birthday, and to mark the occasion, Michael Van Hees is recording it with his brand spanking new top-of-the-line 8mm Betamax camera with stereo sound. And yeah, stereo sound on a personal video camera was a big deal in '89. Which is funny, because the movie is supposed to be set in '83 and the footage just not released until '89. But that's not what bothered Aliotto about this. He was more annoyed one of the characters is wearing a pair of shoes that didn't exist in '83. Which, if that's his idea of a continuity error, he was doing pretty damn well. Point is, it is fascinating to see how similarly this movie is set up compared to so many other found footage movies, even to this day. The premise is as simple as this. Michael has bought a new, very expensive video camera and wants to play around with it, so he films his niece's birthday party. All the other characters look into the camera with curiosity and awe, letting us begin to memorize their faces, and what feels like 5 minutes is dedicated to playful jabs at the man with his toy. When a found footage movie does this today, and a character is older than 7, you question how often the director leaves their room, but remember, this was back in 1989. This was before any majority of people had even heard about found footage, and personal video cameras was still something new and exciting at the time. It makes perfect sense considering the era. But does make me question just how lenient I have been whenever any movie after the 2000s does this. Another thing Alioto, in my opinion, got right is there is no obvious plot template for the movie. No one's expressed a motivation or set up a hurdle or appeared larger than life. For the first 15 minutes, all we see is a subdued, sweet moment between family caught on tape just because they want to remember it. And nothing they say or do leads anywhere. It doesn't feel like a piece of fiction, just real people being themselves in good company. This can be pretty boring to sit through. But considering Alioto aimed to make a movie that appeared as if it was a real event caught on camera, it makes complete sense. But knowing it's fiction, it does come across as padding in a movie without a plot. I wasn't lying when I said the lore of this movie is more interesting than the movie itself. Thing is, Alioto didn't plan to make a movie like this in the first place. It came about out of desperation and anxiety. The way he tells it, all of his idols had made their first movies before they were 25, and with time running out, he decided to go for it no matter what. All he had to work with was $6,500, which was basically nothing. And as he was budgeting, he realized he would have to film it on 8mm film instead of the standard 16mm used in most serious productions at the time. Think of it like how I am forced to record my videos on my phone. And, like me, rather than despair at this limitation, Alioto worked with it. Knowing his reach led him come up with a movie that fit the limitations rather than force a greater production out of it. At the time he was reading Communion by Whitley Strieber, which he described as the most terrifying book he'd read, because the author claimed the alien encounters he described were real. This in turn brought to mind the 1938 incident, where a radio drama based on The War of the Worlds convinced a number of people America really was experiencing an alien invasion. And to this 8mm video, the medium of home movies, and Alioto had the groundbreaking idea of fabricating an alien encounter caught on film. With a basic idea of what he wanted to do, he could now come up with not a cohesive story, but a believable series of events that were so spectacular it didn't need a story to captivate the audience. So yes, this was very much a trailblazer, with all the weaknesses that tend to come with it. After they turn off the light to serve Michelle her cake, when they try turning the light back on, they find the power is dead to the world. The men of the family, Eric, Jason and Michael, played by Tommy Giovacchini, Patrick Kelly and Dean Alioto himself behind the camera, leave to find the breakers. It seems the grid itself is down, but on their way back a mysterious light shoots for the sky, and as you expect from all good horror movie protagonists, they move down the road to follow it to a startling discovery.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit!
Please, AGFA, do not smite me for using that clip! Fun fact, the spaceship and aliens in the movie were all made by Bill Bowes, who grew into a successful designer and art director, having worked on Incarnate, Sleepy Hollow, Sinister 2, and, most impressive to me, Phil Tippett's Mad God. You might think the aliens are a little bit unimaginative, but considering the movie was heavily influenced by Communion, and the budget didn't exactly allow for anything more extravagant, I think what was done here was pretty impressive. For the time. Face to face with creatures from beyond the stars, the three men book it back to the cabin, panicking the women huddled in the ghostly pale light of the white gas lanterns. I'll say quickly as well, I love the way the room is lit. With the stark shadows and the pallid light removing all colors, it looks like a German expressionist film, perfectly capturing the tense, harrowing fear that suddenly descends over the cabin. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it wouldn't be the only happy accident for this film. Naturally, the women don't believe them, and whether it's the sheer incredulity of the situation or them urging the men to calm down, eventually they sink into sheer denial of the situation and choose to continue the party and let Michelle open her presents. A lot of horror fans have criticized the direction here, with the most incredible eyewitness account in history having just taken place 5 minutes ago. They sit down and keep opening presents. Alioto has responded to this by stating, He believes people generally don't do well with the incredible, and rather than sit down and process it, they would rather move on or deny the moment even happened, which I don't know who to side with. It's not like they flip a switch and just decide en masse to forget about the thing. It takes a good 5 or 10 minutes of arguing back and forth to calm the men down, realize their story sounds a bit insane, and they're not actually under attack or followed, and since the power is still out, they can't play the tape back on the VCR, so they may as well continue the party. It's worth pointing out as well how astounding all of the actors are, including the little girl for being able to pull this off, and at no point does it feel staged. At first they think the guys are playing a joke on them and laugh, but when they see how serious they are, they work to calm them down, reasoning with them even if something happened outside, it's over now and they can relax and move on. And finally, I have a moment to state, Ma Van Hees, Jamie Van Hees, Michelle Van Hees and Renee Reynolds are played by Stacey Schulman, Christine Staples, Shirley MacLachlan, and of course, Laura Thomas. All of them reacting very convincingly with mirth, worry, concern, and at no point doesn't it feel like a family just trying to maintain sanity. No script was used for any part of the movie. The actors Alioto used for the film were all unknown but very skilled improv actors, and only had a beat sheet to work with, which is another technique many found footage movies would use in the future. Showing how ahead of the time Alioto was about it made all the more impressive when you know the whole movie was shot in one take. So on the one hand, I feel the need to defend Alioto about this. On the other, the movie grinds to a fucking halt. Which is funny considering the movie was trimmed for runtime in editing. According to Alioto, the only time they had to do a reshoot was when the men were out in the forest, because the lighting was too poor. But otherwise the whole movie was shot in one take in one night, with Alioto wearing a headset and whispering instructions to ready the actors off screen for every scene. The intent was clearly to make a film without cuts, but I think even Alioto realized there was only so much tedious waiting an audience would take before turning the movie off. To that end, cake eaten and presents had, the party draws to a close and half the family moves to vacate the building and get back to their car, and everything turned out alright. Except when Jason sees what Michelle drew for her aunt and he runs after them and drags them back to the house. It's okay, Michelle, she's not in trouble, but it's very important. Where did she see this?
There it is! It's over the window right there! It's gone. It's gone.
Close the window! There it is in the fireplace!
Oh, shit!
I realize the potato quality of the camera is part of the point, but if you two did not see the alien peeking through the window or from behind the fire screen, I don't blame you. That last one is so silly it didn't even occur to me to look there. With the women thoroughly convinced they are under attack, no one bats an eye as they fire at the ceiling, hoping to defend themselves. And when they go outside to get the car and uncover the deceased body of one of the aliens, they do the logical thing and bring it inside. I'm sure that won't come back to bite them in the ass. And if you think that was stupid, the reasoning is even dumber. It's not that Eric wanted to show the authorities and become famous or something as unimaginative as that, no. He reasons if the others want their friend back, they're going to have to go through the house, which will give the family time to run away. This could have been sensible if everyone ran out the door at the same time, but they insist Eric go ahead while Jason stands guard, leaving Michael and the others there to wait with the alien in the room over. Alioto, you were doing a good job making these people seem like they're human. What the hell happened here? Did you watch a Friday the 13th sequel? Things quickly go from bad to worse when they discover Jason has vanished without a trace, and in panic they run to the cars themselves. But there is no trace of Jason or Eric, leaving them all no choice but to return to the cabin and wait for them. Clearly getting out of there is the more sensible option, but With half their family gone and their actions being guided by fear and despair, I understand this choice a lot better than I do keeping the alien in the building. And what follows sort of reminds me about the ending to The Purge. It's a waiting game they play, distracting themselves with a game of Go Fish as they promise themselves that Eric and Jason will come back with help. If they didn't get to the cars, they would have to run down the mountain to find someone, anyone who could come here and help them. So all they have to do is sit tight, remain calm, and pray whatever these creatures are, they won't come after them again. On that note, I do like how the aliens are portrayed as something almost supernatural. They don't fire weapons or deflect damage, but seem able to defend and attack just by willing something to be. How did they spirit away Jason without a sound or struggle? How are they able to stop the power to the building? How did they make everyone's watches stop? And more unsettlingly, what magic do they use to mesmerize Renee and Ma to open the door for them? It is a, forgive my choice of words, alien threat they pose to these people, with their powers clearly being underwhelming but not very well understood. But they definitely have limits that keep them from just coming in there all at once and do whatever. I do like this scene because it feels like the building is under siege and it is tense, and I do think it's a bit repetitive. Literally, as both Renee and Ma Van Hees are compelled at different times to open the door, both claiming to hear a comforting, trustworthy voice telling them to do it. Things go from bad to worse when, with a horrible feeling in his gut, Michael checks in the guest room and finds the alien has vanished. Did it move? Did they fetch it? What does this mean? Are they going to come back? Nobody knows, but their choice had been made. At this point, all the family can do is keep waiting. But thankfully, Alioto decides to put us out of our misery. And on that note, the three aliens were played by three young girls called Kay Parton, Rose Schneider, and Ginny Klecker. Ginny has a dedication at the end of the film, which I don't know what it's for. I guess something happened to her, but I couldn't find out what it was. Either way, that's another neat little detail in this. Am I allowed to disparage a movie this important to my favorite genre? I am impressed so much of what we today take for granted in found footage was done this early, before anyone had really figured out the genre, making me question if this movie is that influential, or some creative choices just make so much sense other people directed their movies the same way automatically. It's a fascinating watch for anyone interested in the genre on a technical level, but I also feel it's largely outdated and not as timeless as some other films in the genre. Cinema is a visual storyteller's medium, but there isn't much of a story to be found here. Things lead logically into one another, and it is a captivating watch for the fear and uncertainty the characters are put under. But a lot of the movie feels like waiting for something to happen, which grows very tedious when the most exciting parts happen 15 minutes in and in the last 60 seconds. If you don't suspend your disbelief to accept the events are real, something which is very difficult, the movie is pretty boring and I dare say meaningless. Alioto himself was not pleased with the movie, so much so at the back of the Blu-ray there is a disclaimer asking people to remember it's a VHS transfer edited on tape and be lenient about it, which is the most adorable thing I have ever seen on the back of a box. In my humble opinion, none of the problems the movie has comes from the editing, but nevertheless Alioto got his chance at redemption. In 1998 he was allowed to produce a remake of the movie with a bigger budget and studio backing, with the title Alien Abduction, Incident in Lake County, which I really need to track down at some point. With 10 years under his belt and more money, I imagined Alioto was more pleased with the remake, but I don't think the original should be forgotten about just because of that. I think its strength as a movie lies not in what it is, but what it represents. the creative achievement and its legacy, the way it's affected public perception, the circumstance that created it, and the spirit of the genre it embodies. It was an experiment born from creative desperation, motivating Alioto to work with what he had to give his best effort that unintentionally set the standard for a whole subgenre of cinema. And that is beautiful. The McPherson tape deserves to be remembered for what it created, the way Psycho deserves to be remembered for spreading the idea of slasher films. While much of it has become obsolete, it's important to recognize the roots of the genre to better understand where it came from. I found myself surprised at just how much this movie does that I remember seeing in other movies 30 years or more later. And every time someone claims found footage is a gimmick or not a real genre, I'm gonna have this movie to slap in their face. But if you're looking to get someone into found footage, for God's sakes, pick something else. I mean, it's perfect for someone who already likes the genre, but there have been so many developments and there are so many better movies out there. I sentenced the McPherson tape to a 6 on a scale of 11. Thank you all for watching. I have been Cool Scratches, and I hope you will join me again next time to take another look at what I found.